Auto-tune? Are you kidding me? Auto-tune? Betaflight now has auto-tune? This is a new feature that was added in Betaflight in the master branch for the 2026 release when that is coming up. It's in there now. You can check it out. And it begs the question, what does it do? How do you work it? What do you have to fly? How does the whole thing work out? What's this graph behind me? What does that even mean? So in this video, we're going to get into what you need to do to fly for auto tuning, and then also how, what some of this graph stuff means, and then how well does it work? It actually gives you ideas of what you should adjust your PIDs to. So is it good yet? Is it going to be good in the future? We got to check it out. Now, as of this video, auto-tune is not in the stable release of Betaflight, which is the 2025 12 release. The 2026 release of Betaflight should be coming up, I would think, at least in 2026. Should be coming up this summer or maybe even this winter. Again, with open source projects and volunteers, you kind of get what you get and you don't get upset. But it is a new feature in the master branch of the code for Betaflight. Now, if you're not seeing it in the configurator, again, because it's in the master, and you can see that up here, this is the master.app.betaflight.com that you can load anytime from either Google Chrome or Windows Edge browsers. And when you go to that site, you will see this auto-tune right here. Now, that won't have these graphs up behind it here. I have a log loaded. And the other thing you'll see is if you connect to a flight controller, you will also, and it can be any flight controller, this is backward compatible, this master branch of the Betaflight app. You will also see it down here under the auto-tune box. So it's the same box, same graphs over here, same page in either way. So you can connect to a flight controller and see it, or don't even have to have it connected to a flight controller. Now, to actually do auto-tune in Betaflight, you'll need a couple things. First of all, you'll need to be on the latest master branch as of this making of this video for Betaflight. Now, obviously, when 2026 version of Betaflight comes out in the stable release, this will be included, and you don't have to be on the master branch. You just be in the 2026 stable release. The other thing you'll need to do is that you will need to make sure that when you flash Betaflight, you have this CHIRP option here selected, and you can see this is the new configurator, and that's one of the options there is CHIRP. So you'll need to make sure that that is checked when you flash up your flight controller to the 2026 release or the master branch if you're checking it out right now. Now, that is a specific mode. So with CHIRP flashed to your flight controller, you will see a CHIRP mode here. You have to put that on a switch. You can see I have it on a switch aux 3 here, and then when I flip aux 3 to the middle position, it enters into CHIRP mode. The other thing you'll need to have set up is black box logging. We are going to take a log in flight and then put it in the analyzer there, load it into the analyzer that you saw in the beginning of the video, and then it will analyze the log. The other thing you'll need is here in the debug in black box, you'll need to make sure that that is set to CHIRP for the debug mode. Finally, in the help for the CHIRP mode, if you type in get black box in the CLI, there's this black box high resolution, and you can see that that is set to off by default. Now, in the topics for CHIRP mode, or the help guides for CHIRP mode, it says to turn that on. Essentially, that gives an extra digit of precision for your set point tracking. I'm going to buck that a little bit, because the issue I see with that as of right now, at least, is that the Black Box Explorer doesn't really work well and read the set point super well. It's not scaled appropriately with this on. And in my experience, CHIRP mode will work with this on or off, and that extra digit of precision is not absolutely really necessary. I don't really see the value. We're not moving the sticks that fast, even with CHIRP mode. So let it be that. If you want to go strictly by the book, you go into here and you type in set black box, and then you can just pick this high resolution and then put that to on. Again, I am going to not be doing that until at least Black Box Explorer gets updated to work with that on, because again, the set point, it's not scaled correctly. Now, the other thing you want to do before you do your first PID CHIRP flight is go up into your PID tuning tab, and you should see your sliders up here. There, we're going to, I would just leave them at 1.0, the default, and there we're going to go ahead and roll back the stick response slider to 0 and the dynamic damping slider to 0. In general, stick response is good once the tune's all worked out, but we want to turn that down for now, and dynamic damping, just because they can muddy the waters a little bit for the CHIRP analysis to be analyzed in the PID term. I should also give the warning that if you have a quadcopter like a 15-inch or some other thing that is really, really far away from the Betaflight's default. So the Betaflight's default is kind of centered around a 5-inch freestyle / racing, heavier kind of racing drone. It works fine for all the classes below it to get started with the CHIRP, and probably everything up to like a 9-inch. Once you get like the 10-inch, 12-inch, 13, 15-inch, these defaults, and if you enter into CHIRP tuning or just even try to take off, they might not work for you, like as in it will crash. And so just keep that in mind. You can't be like having just whatever kind of big, huge, gigantic, it's really the big drones. You can't have some gigantic drone, load the Betaflight defaults, think, well, CHIRP is just gonna work it all out for me. It's not. You're not gonna be able to even take off and crash. You will crash, even on the takeoff. So if you're that kind of level, and if you're using a big drone, you should hopefully know some stuff about drone tuning. Eye term is the killer for you. You'd want to reduce those eye gains before you even try to take off. But nevertheless, we're not getting into that right now. I have some videos on that kind of big drone tuning. I will drop those links down below if you want to check those out to safely get off the ground. All right, well, that's it for the setup. So after that, you go out in the field and fly it, and let's check out what the moves you need to do to capture a good log with CHIRP mode. All right, so the first thing you want to do for a nice CHIRP tuning flight is just a throttle ramp, just to get the full range of motor spectrum and vibrations. You do a couple of those. All right, after that, we're going to go ahead and get into our CHIRP moves. So it's pretty straightforward. You have it set up on a switch, which I have right here. And then you get into a nice spot, a little bit of space, get some good throttle, and then go ahead and switch it in. The first thing it's going to do, it's going to go into roll access. Now I should jump in here. You can also have angle mode turned on when you enter into CHIRP mode. What you would do for that is just have you switch into angle mode and then switch into CHIRP mode. So you'd have it either the same aux switch at the same spot, so angle mode does switch in the CHIRP mode both at the same time, or two different switches. I elect not to do that because if you are in angle mode, you are going to get some cross-axis stabilization, right? If it starts to go off on pitch or yaw or whatever, angle mode's going to adjust for that, mostly pitch. Same thing for pitch, it's on roll. It's going to be giving some other inputs, whereas when it's in acro mode, if I don't touch the sticks, there is no other inputs. And ideally you don't touch the sticks, but it's not the end-all be-all. Obviously you don't want to run into stuff. You can see I was kind of going to the right there a little bit. And you're going to wait until up on the OSD here, it's going to say CHIRP execution finished. So there you go, you can see it, execution finished. Now we're good, now we can go into the next one. So on the next one, we're going to just stay up nice and high here, and then we're going to click it in and it's going to go into the pitch. So you can see it's going to do its thing there. Keep an eye on things. If you need to make adjustments, little tiny adjustments on the sticks, go ahead and do that. But ideally, try not to, like here. Just try not to touch it at all. I'm going to let it go until it gets to the execution finished right here at the end. Here I have to get a little throttle. And then the next one here, I'm going to do the yaw. So I'm going to bring it back over here. And then just go ahead and enter that in and let that go. And we're going to let it do its yaw move. Now we're going to do this one more time. And then we're going to get some the finishing moves here for CHIRP tune, which is some flips and rolls. So we got two sets of the CHIRP execution finished. Ideally, it's not windy. It's kind of windy out here today. But ideal, so I don't know if it's going to make that much difference. But in the ideal scenario, it's not super windy. CHIRP execution finished. So now, after that, we're just going to do some simple flips and rolls. Single access. And we'll get some yaw moves here too. I love the yaw moves. And that's it. That's all you need. So I would bring it in after that. I wouldn't start flying it around. I would just bring it in. The other thing I would try to do, it's not super, I don't know that it's super duper critical, but I always try to just end it nice with disarming before we hit the ground. Now, once you get back from the field, we're going to go ahead and bring up Black Box Explorer again. We're going to go to the AutoTune page, and we're going to go up to this Import Black Box Log. We're going to go ahead and select that. One thing that is kind of weird is you want to have your log downloaded. You could just reference it right off the flight controller by hitting this mass storage, and you might have, or probably hit that to actually get the log copied off of your computer. But you could just click this here and then in the AutoTune, just go out to that drive letter that it's opening. But it's gonna run kind of slow, so that's up to you if you wanna do it that way or copy it to your PC. But once you do have it, wherever you're gonna put the log to access it, one thing you have to do, at least as of right now, you have to go ahead and hit this drop down because it doesn't really recognize the Betaflight file path, which is BFL. It's looking for all these other ones, but BFL is not one of them. So anyways, BFL, so we're just gonna hit all files, and then I have a bunch of them here, which a bunch of testing. This was the one for that flight I just did, and we're gonna go ahead and check it out. Now, I know everybody's gonna be tempted to just scroll to the bottom and check out these PID recommendations right here, but I urge you to resist that. You should know what these graphs mean and not just blindly look at those PID recommendations, at least for now. So let's go through the graphs and see what all this information actually means so you can look at this kind of stuff a little bit more intelligently. So as of right now, in the sequence of the graphs, I don't think they're in the perfect order. I would really recommend going down to this spectrograph gyro trace here. This is essentially, in which I like to call this the Petrova line. I don't know really what you call it, but this, you need to look at what these graphs looks like. And this is the roll, pitch, and yaw, just as indicated here. And you need to have this signal. This is the CHIRP signal coming up through here and coming up. It's going from the 220 degrees per second oscillation all the way up to 600 hertz. The 220, it kind of ramps that down, but it goes up, that oscillation, the frequency increases all the way up to 600 hertz in the default settings. And you need to make sure that is there. If you don't see this kind of nice bright line, if you see more something like this, where there's not really a distinctive line there and there's a lot of background noise, you need to throw away that log. Something went wrong. It's not picking up the church signal just right. Maybe you didn't follow the steps I showed or don't have the black box set up exactly right, or maybe just a fluke. I don't know, but this indicator, you need to, again, make sure you have that Petrova line, though, to see that for any of this to really work and be functional and you know, bad information in is going to be bad information out. Here's another example of a good one, and this is actually a little bit better. This actually shows you kind of want, the ideal scenario is you have this like kind of darker blues here, not much noise, and really this really dark signal. That's the CHIRP signal that the analysis is picking up. So that's the kind of the ideal scenario. Obviously, the brighter this background, it's not as ideal, but as long as it has this nice, distinct ramping signal here, you should be in good shape. Now, the next three graphs, or the three graphs at the very top, are really about your tracking of your gyro versus your stick inputs as it ramps through the frequency, as it increases the frequency of those moves that we saw there, and how well, again, the quad is following it. So it can be for some really interesting information. So as you can see on the bottom here, we have the frequency range going up through in hertz, and then the magnitude essentially of how well the gyro is following, getting to the magnitude of the stick inputs provided. So here where we're at 0, that essentially means that the quadcopter is following the inputs magnitude directly. And you can see that that is happening pretty well up to about 10 hertz. Once we get up to about 20 hertz on this this is a 5-inch quad, it starts to drop off. You can see 30 hertz, 40 hertz, 50 hertz. And then by the time you get up to 100 hertz, it's not following it magnitude wise anymore. So that really makes a lot of sense for a 5-inch. We know that, you know, anywhere in the 0 to 10 hertz band, it's your stick inputs magnitude wise. You know, when you input stick inputs, your quad's going to be able to follow that for a 5-inch. And as you get up to like the 30, 40, 50 hertz range, that's going to start to drop off, and that's where you start to get prop wash. So you can kind of see why these things are coming together, right? The same thing here, this is now just delay, the gyro signal delay. for following in those hertz. Again, up at the 0 to 10 hertz frequencies, not really any sizable delay. After we get into the 20, 30, 40 hertz band, you're going to see more delay. And we can also make some differentiation between the axes here. So you can see that the yellow or the blue is the yaw axis, so that's pretty sluggish, right? It's not going to be following inputs too well. It's going to have it's actually doing pretty well on the for the phase delay, or the delay of the gyro following it for the yaw itself on that put. However, the pitch and roll, you can see, are dropping off. The other thing that you can see in here, that pitch is dropping off a little bit faster than roll. So pitch is a little more sluggish. It's not following the magnitude here as well as, if I just get rid of yaw, it's not following the magnitude here as well as roll, and it's also has a little bit more delay than roll as well. So that's a good input. That's showing us an imbalance in the PIDs between pitch and roll, and we can use sliders to adjust for that. Finally, down here, this is the sensitivity. That really has to do with when you're going to start to get a feedback loop. That's the D-term trilling, or the flyaway mechanism. Once, generally, order of thumb, once you get up to 6 dB, mathematically with that, you're going to start to get that feedback loop from the PID loop itself, and you can get into a flyaway situation. So any of these axes being below that 6 dB, and that 6 dB is not like the firm line, but that's a general rule of thumb, then you're not too close to the sensitivity or flyaway zone. So this has to do with, hey, there's some more room here to move these gains up a little bit in magnitude in general. We're not up to that flyaway point where they're kind of comfortable, stable PIDs. There's a little bit more aggressiveness that they could be if you're trying to increase proc wash performance and things of that nature. The final graph down here is your step response graph. That has to deal with, we're changing the target with those inputs going back and forth. How is the PID loop reacting for that? And you've seen this if you've looked at anything with PID Toolbox or anything of this nature. The step response is really a big judge of each axis. Again, you can see in here how the axes are panning out. Yaw is actually fairly good here. Roll is second, and then pitch is delayed a little bit more. They are not overshooting or oscillating. So this balance, the balance of the terms here, at least between the P and the D, are very good. You're seeing it's coming up to that step response. They're not having like this overshoot. If you'd see this overshoot, that tells us something. If you'd see it's rolling up kind of slower, that tells us something as well. So, and then the big takeaway here, again, you can see it up here, here, and here, that the pitch PIDs need to be a little bit higher in general order of magnitude than the roll, just because there's more weight. I mean, this has a GoPro on it, things of that nature. So now rolling down to the bottom, we have our current gains that are here. So going from the top to the bottom of the analysis that we see here, bandwidth, it really relates to those graphs up above, but bandwidth is where each axis starts to roll off and its ability to control. So this actually puts a number to it more precisely. So you can see that roll axis is able to keep following the magnitude of the inputs up to around 30, let's just say 38 hertz. Whereas, and same thing for yaw, but pitch is 28, 10 hertz less. So pitch, these gains are too weak on the pitch axis. So this would be the pitch axis here. The P, I, and the D need to be bumped up on the pitch axis. Ideally, these two match. So this would be 38 and this would be 38 as well. So just in the analytics, just see like do you have a good tune? If these two should ideally match. The next number here is the phase margin. These are good, healthy numbers once you're up in like the above 100 degrees points. Essentially, that means that we have a tune that's not too unstable. It's not too close to the edge. Once you get these numbers start to getting lower, like sub 100 and sub 50s, that means you are near the edge. You probably have really good prop wash performance though, so it's something to keep in mind and consider. But it gives you an idea of the stability of your tune. I think the big thing here is when you see these higher numbers, like above 100, above near the 150 range, you have more. You should be moving your PID gains up to to see how much better prop wash. You should be using that new thing that I put in there where you can put the master multiplier on a pot and then just do a flight and move it up and see how that works if it's too, if you start to get D-term oscillation. So there's some room to grow here with moving all the gains up. That's really what that number is going to tell you, similar to that graph up above. Likewise, the resonance peak is going to kind of complement this, that if this dB number is kind of higher, like 3, something of that nature, you're going to be getting that D-term trill that maybe you don't hear sometimes, but this is logging it and seeing it. So again, these lower numbers are a little bit better. You have a kind of a safer tune, but there's some stuff on the table there that you might want to consider pushing your gains up. Sensitivity peak, again, more of the same. This is the closer you are to that 6 hertz or 6 dB, I'm sorry, then that's where you're probably close to being unstable. So you can see we're pretty far below that, 4, 3. That's like 3 is like half of 6. So that's half the magnitude. You have, quite a bit to go there. So keep in mind in dB, 3 is double. So every 3, it's a doubling. So 0 to 3 is double. 3 to 6 is double. So keep that in mind with dB kind of stuff. So you can see we have some things here to go. As we talk about overshoot, this has to do with the step response. We have very low overshoot here. This gives an indication of our rise time. So you can see our pitch axis is very responsive, has a quick rise time, where our roll and yaw, not so quick. So here, again, we're trying to get our pitch to match our roll. So we want to increase the gains on the pitch specific to the roll to get these numbers closer together. Settling time has to do with our step response and how long it takes to kind of settle and smooth off. You can see we're in the 60 range here. These can fluctuate, so I wouldn't put too much value on these two, but that's really just how that step response and how well it settles out. If you have one axis not settling versus the other, you might have some I-term adjustments you want to do specifically versus the P to get one axis to settle out a little quicker than the other one. And then finally, and probably maybe the most first important one, is the coherence percentage. So again, that goes to these kind of lines up here, and you want to have a nice high percentage here that's a clear chirp signal coming through for the analytics. So 92 in the upper 80s, 90s, that's where you want to be. You can see that, hey, this axis is a little lower. So our pitch is a little less reliable than the other two. Yaw is very good signal coming in, so on and so forth. Now for the exciting time. It will make recommendations on PIDs that you can input. And if you're connected to your flight controller, so as I'm here and I'm connected, I can go down to here, and these are my slider gains that I can apply directly. So I can, unfortunately right now, it does not have the code built in to differentiate between the axes. I'm sure that will come in the future. So some of this video is some observations I have from my testing. Right now, you have to pick one of the axes. So you can see here my sliders are all at 1.0. In the code, that's 100. We could make it a little easier maybe and just call these out as 1.0, but that's what they're at. So 100 here, 100, 1.0, 1.0, 1.0. I do have the feed forward set to 0 as indicated as something you should have. And then this is my D-term filter slider. So it also gives you a D-term filter slider recommendation. Here it's saying basically what to move the sliders to. So this would be a 1.19 or a 1.2. This would be a 1.6. You kind of round them. 1.2 here as well. Now, it'd be really nice that if it would just automatically do that offsetting for you, because there is the PI slider for pitch, and then the P and the damping slider for pitch, that it could kind of automatically move the PI slider up for pitch specifically for this value, and then leave the roll here. It doesn't do that yet, but it hopefully will in the future. So essentially, you got to pick one of these and hit apply. And this is where I would kind of be hesitant as of right now. Maybe other people are getting some better results, but these PID recommendations are not good. As we talked about, and you can see in here, my step response is looking great. And if I follow these recommendations, it is saying to have my D-term, my damping slider. move it down to 50 or 0.5 instead of that. And if you don't believe me, this is the chirp tune after doing that. So now you can see I have a hump, and that's not ideal for the magnitude. So it's kind of overshooting when we're getting up to these frequencies. The gain, the PID, the gyro is overshooting my inputs. That's you don't want that. It's saying we are getting close to the unstable, like we're up past the 6 dB here on the pitch and right up to it on the roll. And my step response looks like garbage, all this oscillation, and that was following those PID recommendations. Now putting that back in, and you can see what we have here. Putting that back in, now it's saying, hey, slightly move the PI slider down, or the tracking slider down a little bit from 1.2 to 1.0 basically back to where I was. And do that even a little bit more for pitch. Like I kind of a little too much tracking on the pitch axis. You can see though that the adjustments I made, because I did differentially move the pitch and roll up, and I can show you that here in a second, they're matching better now. So that I think my adjustment was actually kind of good. You can see it's 47.6 and 47.1. So I don't think this is right. And secondarily, it's now moving my gains back up a little bit, 0.55, not very much. That's not going to take care of this issue. So as of right now, I would give a lot of caution to following these recommendations. I think as of right now, this tool is really good to evaluate your tune that you have in there. And now that I went over those graphs, you can see what you can adjust and how that works and things of that nature. It's instead of like looking in black box, you can kind of just use this to look at it. But I think this needs a little bit of work. This is in beta yet, to be fair. And hopefully even more people are going to use it now that they have this video and a good explanation on how to do the, set everything up, do the flights and load the data and understand what all those graphs mean. But before you go, I have something really important to show you what happens if you do click those buttons down below, at least in this release. And I also wanted to mention that if you're interested in kind of the underlying settings, there's CHIRP settings that you can adjust and what those are and what happens when you adjust them and some of my thoughts on them. Check out the link below. I'm going to have a Patreon only video going through that deeper dive on those settings and what they are and kind of my experimentation of that. Again, if you're interested in that, check out the link below and I'd love to have you as a patron. And with that out of the way, what does happen if we load some of these settings? So let me go back up to here. Let me bring back that other file. And now that I got that up, this was the original recommendations. Now I have my quad connected here and I'm going to go with, I guess, I'll go with the roll axis, right? Because it's a lower amount of change. This pitch is kind of a big change, and yeah, we're gonna go with that. So I'm gonna hit applied gains, applied and saved. So what it did is it went up into my PIDs here, and it made the adjustment. Now I don't know why. Last time I did this, I don't remember it turning off the pitch and roll slider, but that's something to look for. It might turn that off, so you might have to go ahead and pick that back on. And you can see it halved my D term, and it moved up the PI gains and the stick response slider, which we had down at 0. It moved those up to the 1.2. Another word of caution, big caution. It put these at 0. That means my pitch axis has no PID gains. If you go try to take off, you're gonna have a fun time with that. Don't let that be that way. Put those back to 1.0 so you have PID gains on the axis. So you can see right now in beta, again, I wouldn't hit that button as of right now. This is probably something like AI that, hey, my experience with it now might be totally different in 3 weeks from now or a month from now when it's better. So keep coming back for checking out that kind of stuff. But those cautions there, and then I'll go over to the filter tuning. And again, it turned off the sliders here, but it did move that D gain slider as well for me. But it kind of turned off the D gain filters. So yeah, it's in beta. If you're checking this out right now, don't click that button. Okay. Okay. Well, that's it. That's auto tuning. So if you see the new auto tune out there in Betaflight and you get super excited about it, I think it is something to be excited about. There's still some stuff that needs to be worked out in its recommendations, in my humble opinion, but it's a great analytical tool. And with more and more folks using, I'm sure we'll hopefully be able to hone in on getting those recommendations better and better over time. It's a step in a direction, hopefully the right direction, to be able to do some chirp moves and recommend. Hopefully in one day you'll go out and do those chirp moves. It will recommend PIDs. You'll set it to that. You'll go do it again. And it will say, perfect. Everything's good now. Just one flight and click this button and you're good to go. So progress, eat an elephant slowly, and hopefully we'll get there. If you have any questions about AutoTune, don't hesitate to drop them down below. Thanks everybody. See you next.